Yahusha, living water, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Yahusha, living water, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my God. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my God. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah.
Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah our Elohim. Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commands hangs all the Torah and the prophets. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hooah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Glad you all are here. Here we are, another Shabbat week. Shabbat, day of rest. Yom Shabbat, day of rest. All right. So, okay. I think we have a pretty decent study this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about Tabernacle, Sukkoth, and a lot of related subjects. And so I think it'll prove to be very interesting for most of you. And we're going to go ahead and get started here shortly. But before we do that, I want to say hello to a few people in the chat room. Here we go. So, it's Tabernacles week here, and I think most of us are aware of that. We're kind of in the middle of it. And so I guess this would be the best time of any to talk about this. And hopefully we all come out of this with a little bit more understanding. Okay, so here we go. Miss Sandra Brunston. Welcome, Sandra. Glad you're here. Brother Levi Davis. Glad you're here, Brother Levi. Shabbat Shalom, Mishpaka. Peggy Russell. Barak haba b'shem Yahuwah. Welcome, Sister Peggy. Sister Jocelyn Stewart Bagley. Praise Yahusha. I'm so glad it is time for Shabbat. You and me too. Welcome, Sister Jocelyn. Yahusha's breath, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Happy Sukkot. I'm glad you're here, sister. Sister June and Brother Joe. Glad you all are here. Happy Sukkoth. Joe and June wishing everyone a Baruch Shabbat. Sam and Andy, glad y'all are here. Shema. Sam and Andy, Shag Semiach. Sukkoth. Oh, very good. Kate Connell, Shabbat Shalom, Mishpaka. Glad you're here, Sister Kate. Brother Joseph Hessing, glad you're here. Shalom and blessings, Mishpaka. Lorana Moran, glad you're here. Shabbat Shalom and happy Sukkot. All esteem to Yahuwah. Shabbat Shalom. Glad y'all are all here. Rose Bright, glad you're here, Sister Rose. Shabbat Shalom. Natsarim, have a rejoicing on this Sukkot day. Love one another. Brother Jeremiah, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Glad you're here, Jeremiah. Brother Raul Koto and Yami, glad y'all are here. Shalom, familia from Yami and Raul. Brother Lou and Sister Phyllis, glad y'all are here. Lou and Phyllis, hope all Natsarim are at rest on this Yom Shabbat. All right. Let me see. Nitzari Yahuwah. Shabbat Shalom. Netzarim Mashpaka Baruch Haba B'Shem Yahuwah. Happy Sukkoth to all. Glad you are here. Chaco, glad you're here. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Yehudru, glad you're here. Shabbat Shalom to all here on the chat and from the Delmarva Peninsula of Maryland. William Guzman on San Bernardino, California. Glad you are here, William. Shabbat Shalom. Yahuwah, glad you're here, Yahuwah. Shalom. All right, so welcome to everyone incognito that's joining us this evening as well. Glad you all are here. It wouldn't be the same without you. And I don't know who you are, but you're here a lot. And so, Yahuwah knows. That's all that really matters, right? So welcome, everyone incognito. If I missed anybody, sorry about that. I didn't do it intentionally. I've been accused of doing it intentionally, but really I've never done that. Because everyone's welcome here on the Netzarim channel, every time, anytime, and all the time that we're broadcasting to you live from the great state of Texas. So welcome everyone to the Netzarim channel. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started now. Kind of a broad subject here. So, Sukkoth, the Feast of Booths, Tents, Tabernacle. It goes by a lot of names, but it all means the same thing. It's all referencing a 7-day festival of Yahuwah, an appointed time. And it is one of the most joyful celebrations given to us in Scripture, really. At least it's supposed to be. We find it in Leviticus 23, 33 through 43. So if you want to go there, we'll take a quick look at it. Leviticus 23, 33, and 43. So it says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Yisrael, saying, on the 15th yom of the 7th month is the festival of Sukkoth, for 7 yamim to Yahuwah. On the first yom is a set-apart mikra. You do no servile work. And we passed that. That was earlier this week, right? And so the rest of the days aren't Sabbaths, but, they are highly observant days. For 7 yamim, you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On the 8th yom, there shall be a set-apart mikra for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. So a lot of people get that mixed up. They think the 7th day of Sukkoth is a Shabbat, and it's not. It's the 8th day. That's the Shabbat. Okay, so on the 8th yom, there should be a set-apart mikra for you, and you shall bring an offering made of fire to Yahuwah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. So it's a Shabbat. It's one of Yahuwah's Sabbaths. Okay. And then it says, these are the appointed times of Yahuwah, which you proclaim as set-apart gatherings. And so you're supposed to gather, to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a burnt offering and a grain offering. Now, this is a celebration. This is worship in Yahuwah. That's what this is for. Not for the removal of sins, but to worship Yahuwah with. Okay. A slaughtering of drink offerings and commanded for every yom. Every yom. Besides the Shabbats of Yahuwah, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings which you give to Yahuwah. Now listen to this one. And on the 15th yom of the 7th moon, when you gather in the fruit of the land, observe the festival of Yahuwah for 7 yamim. On the first yom is a rest, a Sabbath, and on the 8th yom a rest, a Sabbath. And you shall take for you on the first yom the fruit of good trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim for 7 yamim. Okay, so this is called a lulav. A lulav. Okay, and the fruit is the estrog. The estrog. It's a citrus fruit, and so we have these this willow, this myrtle, and this palm are different branches of different trees, and we bundle the branches together. That's called a lulav. And then they have a citrus fruit called the estrog. Okay, and we put those together, those 4 items. And willows of the stream, I shall rejoice before you for 7 yamim. So for 7 days you do this. You also find this in the Song of Songs, which we can look at here in a minute if you want to. And you shall observe it as a festival to Yahuwah for 7 yamim in the year, a law forever in your generations. A law forever? As long as our generations continue? Wow. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native Israelites dwell in booths, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah, your Elohim. And thus did Moshe speak of the Modim of Yahuwah to the children of Yisrael. So very, very, very interesting, really, right? And so we go to the Song of Songs, which will be around 760-ish. 763, whatever. Let's see. Song of Songs, chapter 7, which is toward the end there, and verse 6 through 12. So it says, how fair and how pleasant you are, love, in delights. The stature of yours compares to a palm tree, and your breast to clusters. I said, let me go up to the palm tree. Let me take hold of its tips. And please let your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your palate like the best wine, going down smoothly for my beloved, flowing gently, slumbering lips. I am my beloved's, and his desire is toward me. Come, my beloved, let us go forth to the field. Let us stay in the villages. Let us get up early in the vineyards. Let us see whether the vine has budded. The great blossoms have opened. The pomegranates have bloomed. There I give you my loves. All right, so there's a mention of the palm tree there as well, being one of the different types of people. All right, so this is a very interesting here in Leviticus. 23, I think. And especially that 39 through 44. So during the Sukkoth, then, for 7 Yamim, we're told to take 4 species into our booth and offer them to Yahuwah each day. That's what it just said. So these 4 species represent or speak of 4 different people. So it speaks about diversity and unity. Okay, the diversity being the individual 4 species, and the unity being when they're tied together, bound together. Okay. And then there's the estrog, which is a citrus fruit. This also represents a person as well, but it is set apart. So the citrus fruit being of a perfect sort is set apart from the 3 branches that are bound together. And so what this actually represents here, which kind of is an amazing thing, really, is that the estrog being set apart is the elect or the chosen of Yahuwah, his bride, with the fragrance, the sweet smelling fragrance. It's a citrus fruit, okay? No blemishes, no spots, no wrinkles. It has to be a perfect looking fruit. It's like, kind of like, looks like a large lemon in appearance. But anyway, this estrog being his bride, representing his bride, is also a person who studies Torah and obeys Torah, both. All right, an obedience, righteous person, an obedient, righteous person. All right, a person who studies Torah, a person who obeys Torah, and set apart from the other 3 types of people, of the other 3 types of Yehudim. Isn't that an amazing thing? I bet you half of you never ever understood that before, have you? Leviticus 23. So the 3 branches represents 3 other types of people, if you will, 3 species. So the palm, which we just read about in the Song of Songs, is a person who studies Torah, delights in Torah, but does not necessarily obey Torah. So this is a strike. Then we have the myrtle. And the myrtle branch also represents a certain type of person. And this person is one who obeys Torah, but does not study Torah. They do not dig into the knowledge of Yahuwah to get to know their husband better. Okay? So they're willing to obey the 10 Debarim, but they don't want to spend all their time reading and studying Torah. They would just rather obey and go do the other things that they need to do. So they really don't get a really good understanding of Yahuwah, but they do obey him. And then we have and that's a strike, right? So then we have the willow, the mention of the willow branch here. And so the willow is also a species. It's also represents a different type of a person, a different Yehuda. Okay. That is one who does not study Torah, nor does the willow obey Torah. So this person has two strikes. They don't study Torah and they don't obey Torah. This is the willow branch. So there we go. We have the three species of people that are bound together and do not study Torah or they do not obey Torah, or both. Estrock, the citrus fruit, is a person who does both. They study Torah, they lighten Torah, they obey Torah, and they are set apart from the other three. All right. So we could kind of, in a way, if you will, see this as the wheat in the darnel. The darnel being bundled together for the fire, and the estrock being the wheat being put into the granary. But that's just a parallel comparison. It's not really what this is about. Okay, so what they do then with this for 7 days in their booth, I believe generally it's done in the mornings, if I recall, is they take the bundled branches and they take the fruit that's just set apart and they put them together so that the fruit is no longer set apart from the branches. And then they do this, what they call the shaking of the luvah. And by shaking the luvah, they're getting Yahuwah's attention. It's kind of like the wavering of the sheep. Okay, the sheep, they're getting his attention by doing this. It's kind of like dangling a carrot in front of a horse's face, or this type of thing. Waving at somebody, you get their attention. You say, hey, over here, right? You get their attention. That's what this is kind of like. The wavering of the sheep, or the wavering or the shaking of the lulav during booths. So they take and they shake the luvah in with the estrog together in all four directions, all four cardinal directions, which is north, south, east, and west. And they recite a certain, traditional saying, that they do. But it's not really too much about that, except for one thing. When they do this, and they shake the lavav, it's basic in all four cardinal directions. They're basically taunting Yahuwah with the bride. And so the bride, of course, loves their family, their friends, their neighbors, their co-workers. And if they've really perfected their love and actually loved others more than themselves, and Yahuwah more than themselves, which they probably almost as surely have, because they're the bride, they've reached the higher calling by loving others and Yahuwah more than themselves, love everybody. They see people the same way as Yahuwah sees them, out of the eyes of Yahuwah. And they see nothing but love for strangers, people they don't even know. A deep love. So they sort of are taunting Yahuwah with his bride, which is her loved ones, her family, her neighbors, her friends, everybody in general. And they shake him together, taunting him, getting his attention. So put yourself in Yahuwah's shoes, and all of a sudden you look over there, and this is just metaphoric, symbolically speaking here, metaphorically speaking. Now, of course, we all know that Yahuwah is everywhere present all the time. He's omnipotent, right? But just say, for the sake of understanding, that they're shaking this lulav in front of Yahuwah, and he sees it. And he looks over there, and he sees his bride together, bound together with this bundle of people that have been bundled for the fire. And he looks and he's like, what is my bride doing with those people? She's supposed to be set apart, purified, refined, cleaned up. What is she doing? And so they have Yahuwah's attention, don't they? Absolutely do. They have Yahuwah's attention. And so they say, and they shake it at him, taunt him, and they say, take us all, take all of us, or none. That's what they do. They pull it back. Then they turn to another direction, and they say, take us all, or none. And they continue to do that in all four cardinal directions. And this is an amazing, amazing revelation. Because what in the world do you suppose Yahuwah is going to do about this situation? Well, I'll leave that up to your imagination. So let's move on. So Sukkoth, the festival of booths, is one of the most joyful celebrations in Scripture. And after the solemnity of the Shabbat, the opening first day of the festival, Yahuwah's people are commanded to rejoice for the full 7 days. And so it starts out subtle, but increases to rejoicing and celebrating, right? So Yahuwah's people are supposed to remember how Yahuwah provided for the children of Israel during the wilderness journey. He provided for them food. He provided for them water. Their clothes did not wear out. Their sandals did not wear out. And he commanded them to live in booths, temporary booths. So in these scriptural times, if you will. Um, Families left their homes in slavery in Mitzrayim to dwell in booths, tabernacle, and booths, Sukkoth, small, temporary shelters. A powerful reminder that our true security comes from Yahuwah. And when we begin to trust Yahuwah, we do not have to do nothing else. I mean, we don't have to do anything really, but just to trust in Yahuwah, and not because of anything that we do, but because Yahuwah has chosen us as His children, and since we're Yahuwah's children, we learn to, through all circumstances, to lean on Him and to learn to lean into the truth that Yahuwah is our true security. So our true security does not come from walls or possessions or behind locked doors and windows, but from Yahuwah. And if we can learn to lean on this truth that Yahuwah is our true security, then we'll discover a level of peace, joy, and security that the world can't offer. So we only need to receive His love and walk in the confidence that comes from knowing that we are already accepted and adored by Yahuwah. So in this place of comfort, security, and trust, which is in the high tower of His name, you will discover a strength and resilience you never knew you had. For Yahuwah's power is made perfect in your weaknesses. So during Tabernacles, many families, especially over in Israel right now, and others spread out around the world, still build Sukkoths. They put up tents, temporary dwellings. They lay willow branches on the top for roofs. They sit under there, and some even sleep in there during the entire time. And they look up to the sky and they see, and they watch the willow branches start withering, drying up, and dying for 7 days. They watch that. Each day brings forth more vision. As they see the willow trees, the branches of the willow trees dry up and wither, it opens up more and more of the sky, and they can see more of the clouds, more of the blue sky, and at night, more of the stars. And the end of the seventh day, the branches are so dried up and withered that it's almost like having an open roof. So what does that mean? Well, this represents the lifespan of a man. 7 days is equivalent to 70 years. And we just dry up and we wither. And then we die, like the willow trees do. A lot of people put up these tents and booths, temporary dwelling shelters, and so forth and so on. Depending on where they're at, they'll put them up on their rooftops. They'll put them up on balconies. They'll even put tents up in their house, in gardens, out in their yard. It just depends on where you're at. And then they celebrate. They go in there to eat their meals, to share stories, to read scriptures, to laugh, to have fun, be joyful, and having the special feeling of fellowship under the open sky. There's really quite nothing like it. So Sukkoth points us to themes of joy, peace, security, trust, hospitality, and especially trusting in Yahuwah's provision. The 7 days of Tabernacle, of Sukkoth, should remind us all of the coming Messianic age, the millennium reign. Should also remind us of when Yahuwah will once again tabernacle with his people. Let's look at Yehochanan 1:14. Let's go there. Yehochanan 1:14 says, "And the Word became flesh and pitched his tent among us, and we saw his esteem as of an only begotten of the Father, complete in favor and truth." Very interesting. Look at Revelations 21. Revelations 21:3 says, "And I heard a loud voice from the heavens saying, See, the Sukkoth of Yahuwah is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Yahuwah himself shall be with them and be their Yahuwah." Wow. And then it goes on and talks about the eternal reign. So the 7 days, first 7 days of Tabernacle is a reminder of the coming millennium reign. Okay. 1,000 years of rest, of peace, of living the way Yahuwah intended us to live, the way that we would have lived if after Adam and Kua disobeyed and ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They took up the forbidden fruit. If everyone after that would have tried to figure out how we could prevent ourselves from sinning further and denying the power of darkness and rejecting it, we probably wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. But unfortunately, that ain't what happened, is it? Mankind continued to sin. They continued to build on the knowledge of good and evil, and especially evil. And they became more evil, more wicked, and sinned more and more and more and more until our lifespan started diminishing. Lesser and lesser and lesser. Destroy, come back, continue to do the same thing. After the deluge, we didn't try to figure out what we could do to correct the situation and sin no more. We continued to seek out the knowledge of evil and the secrets of Satan. And so we begin to sin more and more and more, and our lifespan diminished more and more and less till we got down to where we're at. 70 years. 80 due to strength. And if you live beyond 80 years, it's only because Yahuwah has blessed you with a longer life. It's a sad, sad thing. It really is. So, Sukkoth began on the 6th at sundown. I went and the first day. And of course, the first day, the Sabbath ended at sunset on October 7th. Okay. The tents or the booths reminds us of Israel living in tents, temporary shelters for that 40-year period of wandering in the wilderness. But it does look forward to the consummation of the wedding feast at the return of Yahusha, HaMashiach, on the day of Yahuwah, which takes us into the millennium reign. Following the Great Tribulation, the millennium reign follows the Great Tribulation and judgment of the unrighteous. So Yahusha was born on the first day of this festival, which would have been Shabbat on after the evening of October 6th, and between the evening and evening of October 7th, Yahusha was born. Okay, and Yahusha, being born on the first day of Sukkoth, was actually born in a temporary dwelling. Now, it says they were out in the field. It says that there were shepherds out there. It says that there was a feed trough in there. And so more than likely, this was animal shelter, a booth that was made for animals to come out of the rain, out of the weather in, and perhaps even feed them grain in there and stuff like that. But we can't lose sight of this was during Tabernacles. So could this have been possibly a booth erected by Joseph? I mean, why was Joseph and Mary there? We got to think about that too. Why were they even there? Well, they were there because Joseph was obeying the command to go to Jerusalem and build a booth and to worship Yahuwah there for 7 days during Tabernacles. That was one reason they were there. Another reason was because there was a creed from the ruler that he wanted everybody to go where they were born, and so that they could do a census and count everybody. And so Joseph and Mary both were from Jerusalem, so they had to go there to be counted in the census of the government. But on top of all that, they were going there to celebrate Tabernacles. And so they would have had to put up a booth because they were commanded to. They had to build a temporary shelter or put up a tent. So perhaps he did. Maybe that's where she was born in. But perhaps he didn't have time to do that. And so she went into labor fairly quickly on their arrival to Jerusalem, and we'll just say. And so he didn't have time to construct a temporary dwelling place. So they saw an animal shelter, and they headed there so she could give birth to baby Yahusha in the animal shelter that was already erected in that area. Probably that's what happened. We can't lose sight that this was why they were there, and that was to celebrate Tabernacle. And they were commanded to put up a booth, and it had to be put up before the first day of Tabernacle, because that would be a Shabbat. But anyway, Yahusha was born on the first day of Sukkoth in a temporary dwelling place. Okay. Now, the closing day of the festival is also a Sabbath, and that would be the 8th day. And they call this 8th day the last great day. I call it the grand finale of all festivals. The grand finale is how I see it. But most people call it the last great day. And that's going to happen October 13th on the Gregorian calendar. It's sunset through sunset October 14th. So this is the closing day of the festival, the 8th day, which is a Shabbat as well. On this 8th day, the grand finale, or the last great day, we are not to dwell in booths. So if you set up your booths, don't dwell in them. You're not supposed to. Just stay out of them. Because the 8th day is a celebration of the eternal reign. No longer the millennium reign, but now the eternal reign, in which we'll all have immortal bodies. So it's a celebration of immortality. So we're going to take off the old booth, the old tent, the tent of the flesh, your fleshly body, and putting on immortal bodies, spiritual bodies, new bodies. Okay, so we won't be dwelling in our old temporary booths anymore made of flesh. We're going to be dwelling in new tents, spiritual tents, immortal. So that's what we celebrate on the last great day, is immortality. And that is why Yahusha was circumcised on the last great day, or the 8th day, under strict command, Torah command of male child was supposed to be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. And so Yahusha, being born on the first day of Tabernacles, was required to be circumcised on the 8th day of Tabernacles. And so, wow, very symbolic type of foreshadow, if you will, of the eternal reign by removing his flesh when he was circumcised as a baby. He was speaking of the eternal reign. So the 8th day, we don't stay in our booths, and it looks forward to a new creation. Okay. There'll be a new heaven, a new earth, a new body, immortal body. And there will be no need. There will be no seas, no oceans. There will be no need for the sun or the moon, because Yahuwah will provide the light. There'll be a new city, a new Jerusalem coming down from the heaven from Yahuwah. Nothing is going to be restored in the eternal reign. It's all going to be brand spanking new. All the old stuff, all the restored stuff is going to be thrown out and destroyed, and everything will be made new. And that's scriptural. That's not just me. Oh, you don't believe me? Oh, boy. All right, go to Revelations then. Look at Revelations 21. It says in 21:1, for the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. So there you go. I mean, if the former heaven and the former earth passed away, and the sea is no more. So there's no restoration there. That's going to be made new. And I, Yehukanan, saw the set-apart city, Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from Yahuwah, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. If there's coming down, prepared by Yahuwah out of the heaven, it can't be restored. It has to be brand spanking new. And I heard a voice from the heaven saying, see, the Sukkoth of Yahuwah is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And Yahuwah himself shall be with them and be their Yahuwah. And Yahuwah shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death. No more death? That's the eternal reign. Everything's immortal. Everything's non-corruptible. No more death. It's immortality. No mourning, no crying. Oh, that sounds like a new body to me. You can't die. You can't mourn. You can't cry. That kind of sounds like the way Adam and Kua was before they took of the forbidden fruit, doesn't it? So maybe they were immortals. And there shall be no more pain. Well, that has to be a new body then, because I sure feel a lot of pain on this old one. For the former things have passed away. They're gone. They've been burned up, destroyed by fire. The elements have melted. And he who was sitting on the throne said, see, I make all things new. There it is. And he said to me, write, for these words are true and trustworthy. So there you go. Everything's going to be new. Go to Isaiah 65. Isaiah 65, 17 says, for look, I am creating new heaven and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come to heart. That's clear as a bell. So the former will not even be remembered or come to heart, because it's going to be totally destroyed and gone. Even it'll be erased from your memory. You won't even remember the restored earth during the millennium reign. It's going to be gone. Totally destroyed. And there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Look over it. Not convinced yet? Look over at Isaiah 66, 22. For as the new heaven and the new earth that I make stand before me, I don't know what to tell you. Declares Yahuwah. So your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from new moon to new moon and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahuwah. That right there is during the millennium, right? Because flesh won't exist in the eternal reign. And they shall go forth and look upon the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, and their fire not be quenched, and they shall be repulsive to all flesh. So to me, I mean, wow. I think that should be renewed right there instead of new. It sounds like a restoration. Speaking of the millennium reign, to me. See, you know where the problem is? Is the word is what the problem is. And so chadash, the Hebrew word chadash, is generally speaking is new. Okay, so it can be new, like a new moon, new song, a new covenant, or new things. Okay, but it can also, the same exact word, the same exact spelling, can also mean restored or renewed. So it can be renewed or things that have been restored, depending on the context that we're reading it in. Okay, and Brit is covenant. You know, when you hear people say Brit Chadash, Chadasha, all they're really saying there is the new covenant. That's what they're saying, or renewed covenant, depending on the context or the subject they're talking to you about. That's the situation right there. Okay, so Chadash covers situations in which old is replaced by new. And this is much better, isn't it? Especially if it's a better one. You know, or in some circumstances or in contexts, it can mean restored. And restored or restoration or renewed means restored back to the original condition that it was originally made in. And so we got to use our common sense here a little bit and apply it in context, because it's the same word spelled exactly the same. All right. Okay, so back to Sukkoth. So Tabernacles and is also symbolic, if you will, of the protective covering of Yahuwah over his children. And so it represents Yahuwah's protective covering, over his children. Okay, so we can see it in that light as well. And it's an appointed time of joy, trust, security, and rest as well. It definitely is represents rest as well, as in Shabbat Shalom, right? Peaceful rest. So during this week-long festival, there's special passages pertaining to Sukkoth that are usually read by people in their dwelling places, or even perhaps the synagogues or their meeting places if they're meeting with others. Okay, and so the thing that that they generally read about is in Exodus, the Exodus of The children of Israel leaving Mitzrayim and wandering in the wilderness, sleeping in booths, and as well as Exodus 12, 33, chapters 12 and 34, and a lot of Exodus. And also Ezekiel, speaking of the millennium reign, and Ezekiel 38, 39, and even in Revelations 21, chapter 21 and 22 is read during Tabernacles. So I guess one of the main things that we need to really learn here, if we can get this, it's very important to learn how Sukkoth represents the protection or the sheltering presence of Yahuwah. And once we can understand this, will absolutely bring blessing into your life. So Exodus 34:10. Let's go to Exodus real quick. Turn to Exodus. So Exodus 34:10 says, and he said, see, I am making a covenant before all your people. I am going to do wonders such I have not done in all the Eretz, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom you shall see the work of Yahuwah. For what I am doing with you is awesome. All right. So, in this reading here, this passage, Moshe is asking asking that Yahuwah's presence go with Israel. And amazingly, Yahuwah agrees and grants his petition. And I guess before we go into that, which we're going to, because I think it's extremely important, we're staying there in Exodus 33. We'll go to 33 now. And before we do that, let me share screen something with you. And I want you to see this so you get a visual, if you will. And my most favorite thing in the world to do is share screen. What's that? What'd you say? Oh, sorry about that, Speedy. Speedy just informed me. I don't know if you all have met Speedy before, but he's right here. This is Speedy right here, the one with the funny looking hat. He has just informed me that I did not welcome him and his faction into our study this evening. So sorry about that, Speedy. I didn't do it intentionally. So we want to welcome Speedy and his friends, Billy, Blue, and the Purple People Eater to our meeting, to our study. So welcome, welcome, welcome. All of you are welcome. Okay. So here we go. This is this is inside of a booth this man has erected in Israel, of course. And you can see where he has the bundled branches, and there's the fruit, citrus fruit, the set apart fruit. And he's getting ready to do his shaking of the Luval in front of Yahuwah. And they put stuff up. I don't know, what they do, and they decorate there. And there's some type of a painting back here and stuff, and he's got it all decked out in here. But this is sort of what's going on, so you can get a visual on that. Okay. Before we go any farther, I mean, some of you may not have been following along there verbally. Visual is always better. So there you go. Back to Exodus. Let's go ahead and go to Exodus 33. We're going to find where Moshe asked Yahuwah asked Yahuwah that his presence would go with them, go with the children of Israel. And Yahuwah agrees to this request. Okay. So being encouraged by this positive response by Yahuwah, Moshe gets really bold and also asks Yahuwah to show me your esteem. So once Yahuwah went ahead and agreed to go along with Moshe's request, he goes ahead and complies with his second request here. And he invites Moshe to ascend Mount Sinai with 2 newly inscribed stone tablets so that he can re-engrave the 10 Commandments on them. So on the mountain, Yahuwah reveals his esteem to Moshe in such a fearsome presentation of power, spectacle of power, that Yahuwah must protect Moshe from being destroyed by it, which I find quite amazing, because I kind of get it in a way, because I once asked Yahuwah to show me his love for people, and it was so overwhelming that I thought I was going to die. And so I can kind of understand this. The spectacle of power was so magnificent, so fearsome, that Yahuwah was going to light it up, man, to the point where he had to protect Moshe from being destroyed. Because nobody can see Yahuwah in his full esteem and live. It ain't going to happen. And nobody ever has, and lived to tell about it anyway, right? So if we look here then to Exodus 33 and start with 16, and we'll go to the end of that chapter there to 23. It says, "For how then shall it be known that I have found favor in your eyes, I and your people, except you go with us?" So see, here's his first request. He's asking Yahuwah to go with them, to be with them. "Then we shall be distinguished, I and your people, from all the people who are upon the face of the earth." And Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Even this word you have spoken, I shall do. For you have found favor in my eyes, and I know you by name." So here he just granted Moshe's request, right? His petition, said, "Okay, I'll go with you. I'll be with you." Right? And then, so Moses all pumped up, right? And he's just excited and everything. And so he says, "Well, yeah, he gave me that one. I'm going to ask for another one," right? And so he does. He says, "Then he said, please show me your esteem." And so here he's asking him to show himself to him. He wants to see him. in his esteem. And we all know that, at least I think most of us know anyway, that Yahuwah is invisible and cannot be seen in his natural form. So by Moshe asking to see his esteem, he's asking, show me yourself in your body that you created in the beginning. Because there's no doubt in my mind that Moshe knew that Yahuwah was invisible. And is Yahuwah invisible? Yeah, he is invisible. Okay. And so he has a body that he indwells, just like he does his elect, his chosen people, right? Same thing. And why he's in this body walking around, which is a type and a foreshadow for us as his spiritual body as well. If you really think about it, if he indwells you, you're his esteem as well. As he's walking around in his esteem, he's walking around within himself. So here is Yahuwah within himself, walking around in his body, and showing himself to Moshe. So how is it that he's walking around within himself? Because Yahuwah is the perimeter of existence. That's why. There's nothing that exists outside of Yahuwah. Nothing at all. And so he must be walking around in his body, or his elect, within himself. So his body is in his body. And that's what he means by saying, when he indwells us, obviously then we're his esteem. And so he is in us and we're in him. That's what he's talking about. Because he's the perimeter of existence. So let's get a look at the second thing Moshe asks. He says, please show me your esteem, which obviously he wants to see him. And the only way he can see him is if he's in his body that he created for himself on the first day that he decided to share his life, his living breath with others. He said, well, they're going to have to see me. I want to see them. I want to be with them. I want to walk with them. I want to talk with them. And so I'm going to need a body. And he did. He created one. And it's his esteem, which is something that is highly valued, highly respected, highly sought after. The firstborn of all creation is the esteem of Yahuwah. And he said, I shall cause all my goodness to pass before you, and I shall proclaim the name of Yahuwah before you, and I shall favor him who I favor, and shall have compassion on him who I have compassion. So there you go. He's telling him, I'm going to let all my goodness walk before you, because after he created his body of light, he said it was good on the first day. The byproduct, if you will, the impurity, the dross to come out of the light was the darkness. And that was something that would be eliminated later on. Okay. And so maybe he said it was good. So maybe it was good for his plan, his delight to be carried out from what he was doing, because he knew that when he created, then opposition would appear. And this opposition would probably not be something that he would be taken into eternity with him, but eliminated through refining and purifying and refining and cleaning it up and even getting rid of it, destroying it if need be. So anyway, he says, I shall cause all my goodness to pass before you, and I shall proclaim the name of Yahuwah before you. So as he's going to pass before him in his body, he's going to let Moshe know that it's him, because he's going to proclaim his name as he walks by. He's going to say, Yahuwah, Yahuwah. Okay, there's a lot of breath in his name. And because of dialect and accents, perhaps we can't make the proper sounds that we need to make when we pronounce his name. But don't worry, he still knows you're calling on him when you say Yahuwah, or however you say it. I've heard maybe 5, 6 different expressions of his name because of dialects and accents of people throughout the world. But I can still tell that they're saying Yahuwah, and so can he. Not to say that my dialect is the correct way of saying it. I say Yahuwah, right? Yahuwah. Maybe I'm not right, because my dialect is causing me not to be able to say it correctly. But he still knows I'm calling on him. It's like somebody says my name, Mark, and they say they're from Boston or from Japan or somewhere where they can't use the R correctly. And they say Mach instead of Mark, okay? And it's very common. I've known quite a few people from the Maine and Boston and up in that area, and they can't say the R. They have a really hard time with it. So they call me Mach. And one time I was with this guy who I knew fairly well, and I was just more or less kind of teasing him because I knew him for years. And he says, he said, Mach, and whatever he said to me. And I said, man, my name ain't Mach, it's Mark. There's an R in there. And he just kind of gave me a stern look. And he says, that's what I said. I said Mach. And I said, okay, man, Mach. I got you, man, Mach. No, not Mach, Mach. And I'm going, oh boy. He thinks, so in his mind, he's hearing Mark. But what I'm hearing out of his mouth in my ears is Mach. But see, that's because when we speak, we don't hear ourselves with our ears. We hear ourselves in our mind. And that's why he thought he was saying Mark. But he wasn't. Because I could hear what he was saying in my ears, and it wasn't Mark, it was Mach. But to him, it was Mark, because he was hearing himself say it in his mind. And so that's what's going on there. It's not that big of a deal. I still knew he was talking to me. If he would holler for me, Mach, I would turn around and say, yeah, I knew he was talking to me. Even though his dialect or his accent was hindering him to say it the way that I wanted it to be said. Okay? And so I hope you're all picking up what I'm laying down on that. But anyway, as Yahuwah passed by Moses, he proclaimed his name, Yahuwah. Okay, so that there would be no doubt who it was that was passing before him. So what's really interesting about that, and I was really thinking about this really deeply one time, and I came to this understanding that Yahuwah, although I don't, maybe Moshe has never seen his esteem or his body, but if he did, he was going to turn the light up, his brilliance, his illumination, the glow up to a higher level that Moshe had never seen before, even to the point where if he looked at his face, it would kill him, that Moses didn't recognize him, okay? And it may be that he just never saw him before. But don't forget, when Moses went up on Mount Sinai to see the burning bush, there was a man in the fire. There was a man standing in the fire of the burning bush. And so Moses saw that man in the burning bush. And that was Yahuwah's esteem as well. So maybe he did see him, but this time it would be different. Okay. So anyway, it says, I shall favor him who I favor and passion on him who I have compassion. This takes man out of the equation. So we don't need to run around trying to save the world. We don't need to be running around trying to act like we're doing things, trying to do something to get his attention or trying to earn his love or our deliverance or anything else like that. Okay, we don't need to be doing that because, we're chosen by him. The elect, okay, if we are an elect, we'll just say, we are beloved by Yahuwah already. And so we're beloved by Yahuwah. We're chosen by Yahuwah. We're set apart by Yahuwah. We're purified by Yahuwah. And not because of anything that we do. Nothing. But because of him, because of who we are to Yahuwah. And that is his children. So lean on that truth. You can't do nothing to earn his favor or compassion. He's given it to you freely, free of charge. Why? Because he chose you. That's why. You didn't choose him. Ain't nothing you can do. Ain't nothing you can do to deliver yourself. Ain't nothing you can do to deliver anyone else. It's Yahuwah's favor and compassion, his mercy, that's going to deliver you. And I think this statement right here is clear as a bell. This statement right here should humble every person here in this message tonight. And it is very clear that we're taken out of the equation as far as eternal destination goes. And it's all Yahuwah's choice, not ours, no matter what we do. But he said, you are unable to see my face, for no man does see me and live. So he must have had his face turned up full volume, man, full brilliance, to the point where it was brighter than the sun, so brilliant that if Moses would have looked at it, Moses would have turned into dust instantly. That's just what I think. And Yahuwah said, see, there is a place with me, and you shall stand on the rock, and it shall be while my esteem passes by that I shall put you in the cliff of the rock and cover you with my hand while I pass by. So very clearly here now, his esteem is his body. Because he is saying, while my esteem passes by. So there's no doubt that my esteem that he's saying here is his body. And that I put you in the cliff of the rock and cover you with my hand while I pass by. So he's got a mouth, he's got a face, he's got a hand, he's got legs and feet, he's walking. He's absolutely in a body. Then I shall take away my hand, and you shall see my back. Oh, he's got a back, so absolutely he's got a body then. But my face shall not be seen. So you let him see his backside, but not his face. And so, obviously, he's able to turn his backside down, dim it down, and leave his front, his face, his frontal, turned up to maximum brilliance, illumination, so that Moses couldn't see his face, but he could see his back. That's mind-blowing, man. Look at the control. the power that Yahuwah has even over his own body here. He's definitely in a body here, a body of light. There's no doubt about it. And this is the firstborn of all creation, the Word. That's who this is. The Word is Yahuwah. How can the Word be Yahuwah? If Yahuwah is one, can't be two, or else the Shema wouldn't be true. So absolutely is one. And so that would be his body. And since it's his body and his body alone, then it's Yahuwah. Which brings up an interesting point if you really think about it. In the eternal reign, when all the living stones have been built up into the body, the dwelling place of Yahuwah, and Yahusha becomes the head of the body, and Yahuwah's indwelling his body, are we going to be his esteem? Yeah, we will be his esteem. And so since we're going to be his body, his esteem, we're going to be one with Yahuwah, it almost sounds to me like we're going to be Yahuwah. The election will be Yahuwah in the eternal reign. Them powerful stuff, man. Where is esteem? When he makes sense. Okay, so to further show this truth, go to John, 1 John. So 1 John, I know I'm off on a tangent now, but hey, I'm rolling with it, man. Look at John 1. Oh, man, oh, man. Yeah. John 1:14, and the Word became flesh and pitched his tent among us, and we saw his esteem as of an only begotten of the Father, complete in favor and truth. There you go. We saw his esteem. And so that means that his body of flesh didn't stop being his esteem. It still is his esteem because the Word became flesh. His body of light became flesh, and he pitched his tent among us. He put his body of, he stayed in his body, okay, and in his tent, and walked among us in his fleshly tent. And we saw his esteem. We saw his body, just like Moses saw his body of light. Still his body. He just transformed it from light to flesh. And then he can transform it back, which he did on the Mount of Transfiguration. And then he can go back to being flesh again because that's what he did when he became the Lamb of Yahuwah and died. Yahuwah did not die. Only his esteem died. His fleshly body, which was resurrected and transformed back to light and ascended back into Shemayim after 40 days and sat back down on the throne from which he came from. So we saw his esteem, the esteem of an only begotten Son, or begotten of the Father, complete in favor and truth. Wow. Now look at Hebrews 1:3. Hebrews 1:3 says, who being the brightness? Whoa. Who being the brightness of the esteem, the exact representation of his substance, and is sustaining all by the word of his power, have been made a cleansing of our sins through himself, sat down at the right hand of the greatness on high, having become so much better than the messengers, and he has inherited a more excellent name than them. Wow. For to which of the messengers did he say, "You are my son, today I have brought you forth"? And again, I shall be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. And when he again brings the firstborn into the world, what? Again? When he again brings the firstborn into the world, he says, "Let all the messenger of Yahuwah do reference to him." Wow. Mind blowing stuff here now. Okay, so I think you're getting the message here. Look at Psalms 104 real quick, and I'm going to get back on course. Psalms 104 very quickly. Psalms 104, 1 and 2. Bless Yahuwah, my being, Yahuwah, my Elohim. You have been very great. You have put on excellency and splendor, covering yourself with light as with a robe, stretching out the Shemaim like a curtain. There you go. That's his body of light, made on the first day of creation. Okay. So look, it's clear, man. Very, very obvious, very clear that Moshe, having experienced the power of the presence of Yahuwah, the Shekinah Kabod, understands that he understood that Yahuwah's presence is more than sufficient against any threat that Israel or Yahuwah's chosen might encounter, whether inside or outside of paradise, aka the promised land. Moses got it. He understood it. Here, I'll show you another. I don't know if I can or not. Let me see. I'll try. Hang on a minute. Let's see. Maybe. Let me just try. Just to say I did it. Yeah, I think I can. By golly. Okay, so I'm going to do my most favorite thing in the whole world to do, and Speedy's most favorite thing in the world as well. And share screen. Share screen. All right, here we go. All right, so check this out. Obviously, this is happening. Picture came out of today over in Yesharah. And you can see here that here is a man, which the world calls a Jewish man. You know, they're all Jews, don't you know? But anyway, this man is holding the four species. He has his prayer shawl pulled over his head, and he's praying while holding the four species described in Leviticus 23. Can you imagine what this man is praying about? I can. He's praying for you. You want to badmouth him? He's praying for you. You're one of them 4 species. Which one are you? You the myrtle? You the palm? Are you the willow? Or are you the citrus fruit? Are you the bride? Which one are you? You know. And Yahuwah knows. So let's talk a little bit here now, because this kind of goes hand in hand here a little bit with this festival of Tabernacles, about Gog and Magog. So Gog and Magog seems to want to challenge Yahusha. They seem to want to prevent the restoration of Yisrael during the millennium reign. So Ezekiel 38, go to Ezekiel. Ezekiel 38, which would be like page 579 if you're in your BYNV following along, which I hope you are, by the way. Ezekiel 38:18 says, 38:18 in Ezekiel. And it shall be on that Yom, or that day, on the Yom when Gog comes against the land of Yisrael, attacks Yisrael, declares the Master Yahuwah, that my wrath shall come up in my face. So Yahuwah's hot anger will be aroused when he sees that happening. And so during this intermediate days of the festival here, I mean, we're in the middle of Sukkoth, right? The Hebrew prophet Ezekiel here he's describing an end-time scenario in which a formidable armies from the north will challenge the restoration of Yisrael and try to prevent it. Now, I know we've all been told and taught who Gog is and who Magog is, and there's a lot of different opinions of that, and it really doesn't matter that much. But we know that Gog is going to, I mean, if we go up here into Ezekiel 38:16 up here, it says, let me see, and you shall come up against my people Israel like a cloud to cover the land in the latter days. Later Yamam, it shall be. And so this is during the tribulation years. So if you see, when you see later Yamam, that's a hint or a clue. He's talking about the tribulation years. It shall be. And I shall bring you against my land, which is Yisrael, which is there right now. They were reborn in 1948. There's a lot of hatred being spoke about them, and a lot of propaganda, a lot of lies spoken about them, that they're not the real Israelites and all this and all that. Don't listen to that stuff. Yahuwah has a plan, and Yahuwah's will be done, no matter what people tell you is going on over there since 1948. But it's really in Scripture. You don't have to believe them. Read it yourself. In order that the nations know me when I am set apart in you, O Gog, before their eyes. And so it almost, I mean, and they've gone on to 18, And it shall be on that Yom, on the Yom, when Gog comes against the land of Israel. See that? And so I know that it seems to be that Gog is a nation here, or maybe a coalition of nations. But then again, it kind of sounds like Gog's the leader of a great army, a formidable army coming from the north. So perhaps if we readjust our exegesis mind to try to understand this rather than using our eisegesis mindset to try to make it say what we want it to say, because our memory banks aren't allowing us to further or advance our knowledge. Maybe Gog is a chief prince living in the land of Magog, in the region of Magog. Look at 38:2. Ezekiel 38:2. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rush, Meshech, and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So does that not sound more like Gog is the leader or the chief prince living in the land of Magog rather than being a nation or a coalition? Read it again. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog. You see it? So perhaps under the leadership of Gog, here there seems to be a chief prince, a general, or something here that's living in the land of Magog, of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh. Seems to be a chief priest. So many scholars believe and teach that Gog is a nation, but it doesn't sound like he is, according to Ezekiel 38:2. And many scholars also believe that Magog refers to Russia. The invading land of Gomer is often believed to be Germany, and it probably is. I can go along with that. And perhaps Magog being Russia. It's also believable. All right? The Prince of Rosh. Could be Russia. Gomer, Germany. Several lands in this end-time coalition army are more easily identified. Persia, one of them. That's a no-brainer. Persia's Iran, right? Northern Sudan, which is ancient Ethiopia or Kush in Africa. Libya is Libya. And Togarmah is Turkey. That would be Turkey. So it's, fairly understandable here what some of them are. But anyway, I'll go along with Magog being Russia. Russia has permanent air bases in Syria now. And Russia also leases the naval base in Tartus. So there's a good possibility things are shaping up to be that Russia is Magog. Iran which is Persia, not only has significant influences in Iraq, along with Russia and Lebanon, through proxy forces, but its radical regime has invested billions in infrastructure and military operations in Syria as well, even building missile manufacturing plants in Syria. So most of these nations, I don't know if I would love to screen save, share this with you. I don't know if I'll be able to, though. Let me see if it'll work. I don't know. Probably. I doubt if this one will. We'll see. Nope, I didn't think so. If I have another one, just give me just a second because I would love to show you this. Let me see if I have another one I can show you because that one won't. I can't get that one to download. Let me see. Maybe I got one here. I don't know. Not really. That's no. Thought maybe I had another one I could show you. Since that one won't download right for some reason. Let's see here. Close, but no. Try just a little bit longer. If I can't find one, we're going to move on here. Hope y'all enjoying tonight's study. I'm enjoying it immensely. It's I think very powerful stuff, man. He was just revealing this evening. Oh boy, that one was close. No. You know what? Here's one. This one will do it. All right. So here we go. Do my most favorite thing in the world. And that will be share screen. Settle down, Speedy. Speedy getting excited. He loves to share screen. Calm down, Speedy. By the way, Speedy been cutting back on them pork chops. At least that's what he claims anyway. All right, so here we go. This is what I was wanting to show you. This is the map here. Look at, in comparison here, look how small Israel is, man, right here. Isn't that crazy? And so they look to be totally surrounded to me. And the armies of the north of Israel, Syria, Iran, there's the north to northeast, Turkey, Russia, straight up there, Russia, Syria, Turkey, Iran, north to northeast there, all that coming down on little Israel there. It's crazy. So anyways, yeah, so they got Syria there, just right up above them there. They're right there next to them, right up above them. They're building missile manufacturing plants there. Russia. That's just crazy. Why are they doing that? It must be getting ready for the attack, I guess. So scripture says in Ezekiel 38 here, that the nations mentioned here in this chapter will unite and come upon Israel like a cloud that covers the land, it says, for the purpose of looting the wealth that Israel has amassed in what was a desolate land only 77 years ago. Amazing what they've done with that strip of land in 77 years. But make no mistake, Yahuwah is not going to abandon Israel. Those are his people. That is his chosen place to write his name in Jerusalem, whether you like it or not. It's all prophesied. It says that Yahuwah will utterly destroy the coalition forces led by Gog, so that all nations will come to know the set apartness of Yahuwah. Look at 38, Ezekiel 38:18. Ezekiel 38:18. Down to the end of that chapter. And it shall be on that Yom, on the Yom when Gog comes against the land of Yisrael, declares the Master Yahuwah, that my wrath shall come up in my face, for in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath I have spoken. On that Yom there shall be a great shaking in the land of Yisrael, so that the fish of the sea and the birds of the Shemaim and the beasts of the field and all creeping creatures that creep on the earths and all men who are on the face of the earth shall shake at my presence. Shake at his presence? He's going to leave his throne, man. He's coming down here. Of course, that's metaphorically speaking. And the mountains shall be thrown down. Those are nations. And the steep places shall fall, and every wall fall to the ground. Sounds like a large earthquake to me. And I shall call for a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the Master Yahuwah, the sword of each one being against his brother. And I shall judge him with pestilence and blood, and rain down flooding rain of hailstones, fire and sulfur, and on him and on his bands, this is armies, and on the many peoples who are with him. See, so you can see that this is going to be localized war, Armageddon. This is Armageddon. So the hailstones are going to be rained down on the anti-Messiah and his army. Do you think Gog is the anti-Messiah? No possibility. And I shall exalt myself and set myself apart, and I shall be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Yeah, wow, man. Very powerful stuff. Yeah, look at 39 there. This is talking about parts of Turkey and even northern Iran here. 39:1. And you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and you shall say, thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. So it seems to be Gog is the chief prince, or the prince of Russia, Turkey, and northern Iran, and shall turn you around and lead you on and bring you up from the uttermost parts of the north and bring you against the mountains of Yisrael, and shall smite the bow out of your left hand and make the arrows fall from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you shall fall, you and all your band, armies, and the peoples who are with you. Wow. Yeah, this is Armageddon. The last war mankind will ever fight, right here. Armageddon. So just talking about. But see what I'm saying now? It just seems like maybe this Gog character is a prince, a chief. This could be the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist. So, yeah, wow. Okay, and so the forces that come against Israel here in Armageddon will be so large in their day of defeat that Gog's weaponry will provide fuel for Israel for 7 years. 7 years. Look at Ezekiel 39. 9 and 10, probably 9, actually 9. 9 through 12, actually. Ezekiel 39, 8 through 12, let's say. Maybe farther. Let's see what it says. See, it shall come and it shall be done, declares the Master Yahuwah. This is the Yom of which I have spoken. And those who inherit the cities of Israel shall go out and set on fire and burn the weapons, both the shields and armor, the bows and arrows, the clubs and spears, and they shall make fires with them for 7 years. Wow, man. So Gog's weaponry here is going to provide fuel for Israel for 7 years. And take no wood from the field, nor cut down any from the forest. For with the weapons, they make fire. They don't even have to use wood. Just burn the weapons. And they shall plunder those who plunder them, and loot those who looted them. And it shall be on that Yom that I give Gog a burial site there in Yisrael, the valley of those passing by east of the sea, and stopping those passing by, because there they shall bury Gog and all his throng. See, it seems like Gog is a person. There they shall bury Gog and all his throng, and shall cut it and call it the valley of Hammon Gog. The valley of Gog. Lots of carnage here from Armageddon. And the house of Israel shall bury them for 7 months in order to cleanse the land. Look at that, for 7 months. It's going to take them 7 months to bury the carnage from Armageddon. And all the people of the land shall bury them, and it shall be for a name to them on the Yom that I am esteemed, declares the Master Yahuwah. Wow. So the whole country is going to bury the carnage left over from Armageddon. It's going to take them 7 months to do it. And they're going to burn the weaponry of Gog. It's going to provide fuel for the nation of Israel for 7 years. They don't even have to cut down any wood. Just burn the weaponry. They will not need to gather wood from the fields or to cut it from the forest, because they will use the weapons for fuel. And they will plunder those who plundered them and loot those who looted them, declares Sovereign Yahuwah, Master Yahuwah. Wow. So moreover, so many soldiers are going to die in this battle, this great end time battle, latter days battle, latter Yamim, Armageddon, that it will take 7 months for the nation of Israel, not just a few people. They has a job to go bury people. The whole nation is going to take part in this. Going to take the whole nation of Israel 7 months to bury them all and cleanse their land from this carnage. I don't know if you can grasp the immensity of the carnage here, but it's It's insane. All right, so this all happens in the latter Yamam, Armageddon. So this is just prior to uh, the first day of Tabernacle, which will be the first day that Yahuwah comes down and tabernacles with men again. It's not going to happen till after this happens. So this is basically this Armageddon here will be the last event or the last war that mankind will ever partake in before the big start of the millennium reign, before the first day of Tabernacle comes along. So this is it. It leads up to the first day of Tabernacle in the year that that it really truly happens, not just practicing anymore. It's a real live event. It's coming soon. No worries. Don't let your heart be troubled. It's coming soon. So back to Sukkoth now, which represents maybe on the spiritual level, if you will, the protection or the protective covering of Yahuwah. Let's just look at it that way. So did you think I went out on a tangent here talking about Armageddon? Well, I did not. So why should we read about this end time battle during this festival, during Sukkoth? Why should we? Am I just on a tangent? Am I wasting your time talking about this? Absolutely not. There's a reason for it. So why do we read about this end time battle during Sukkoth? Well, for one thing, like I said, this war, Armageddon, will be waged during this month, the month of Tishrei, the month in which Sukkoth, the festival of tabernacles, falls. So it's going to be wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Coming fast, hard, and furious. Interestingly enough, if you have an app to where you can go back through the calendar's years, all the way back to the time that Yahusha was offered, sacrificed, you're going to find that happened in 30 CE, Common Era. 30 AD, after the death of the Messiah, or 30 CE means Common Era. That's when he died. Okay, and so you can go all the way back and look at that. It will be around Passover festival, and then you can also take it forward, and you can almost use that program, that app, to find out when the Festival of Tabernacles happens, when this war is going to happen, what festival. So interestingly enough, the war that is described here in Ezekiel, very, very clearly actually, is similar to the war described in the 14th chapter of Zechariah, which is the reading that a lot of people do on the first day of Sukkoth. And in Zechariah, we learn that the Gentiles who survived the war against Yisrael will be required to keep Sukkoth annually by coming up to the set apart city, Jerusalem, to worship Yahuwah. It's in Zechariah 14, if you want to go there. Zechariah 14. So Zechariah 14, 16 and 17 says, "And it shall be that all who are left from all the nations who came up against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to bow themselves to the sovereign Yahuwah Sabaoth, and to observe the festival of Sukkoth." So when does that happen? In the millennium reign. That's when. "And if any of the peoples of the rest do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahuwah Al Shaddai, they will have no rain." They will have no rain. And so you can see that this isn't the eternal reign. This is talking about the millennium reign. Absolutely is. It's pretty clear. So if you see here in 16, Zechariah 16, it's talking about Armageddon. "And it shall be that all those who are left from all the nations which came up against Jerusalem," that's the Battle of Armageddon. And then it goes into talking about observing the festival of Sukkoth in the millennium reign for 1,000 years. And if you back up in front of that, where it talks about the plague in 12, it says, "And this is the plague with which Yahuwah plagues all the people who fought against Jerusalem." Of course, that would be Armageddon. "Their flesh shall decay while they stand on their feet, and their eyes decay in their sockets, and their tongues decay in their mouths. And it shall be in that yom that a great confusion from Yahuwah is among them, and every one of them shall seize the hand of his neighbor, and his hand rise up against his neighbor's hand. And Yehudah shall fight at Jerusalem as well. And the wealth of all the nations round about shall be gathered together, gold, silver, garments in great quantities. So also is the plague on the horse and the mule, on the camel and the donkey, and on the cattle that are in those camps, as this plague." And so what is this talking about? This is talking about Armageddon climaxing with a nuclear explosion, is what that is. That's almost a perfect description by a man who didn't know the word nuclear. Bomb, missile, rocket, he didn't know any of them words. He could only speak from the vocabulary that he had in his time period, which was a long time ago. But he's doing a wonderful job here of describing a nuclear detonation that happens in Jerusalem. So there's a big war, Gog and the northern nations that follow him come down to prevent the millennium reign from happening, to prevent Yahuwah from tabernacling with his people. And they come down and attack, and they surround Jerusalem. Half of it's taken. The women are ravished. And then Israel decides that they're going to opt out, and they're going to release the Samson option, which is a nuclear bomb, because they're going to feel it's better to be destroyed with their enemy than to lose Jerusalem again. And so they detonate the nuclear bomb, the weapon, and at that precise second, Yahusha returns and blocks the blast, shields Jerusalem and the people of Jerusalem, and the nuclear weapon actually hits the anti-Messiah and his army, and you see what happens to him. And not only to them, but to all the animals within the radius of the nuclear bomb. and the fallout has the same plague. They suffer from the nuclear blast as well, the animals and the people. And so you can see why this event here is so closely related to Tabernacles. So what happens when Yahushua comes down and shields Jerusalem from the nuclear blast? Well, after all that's all over, he stays and tabernacles with his people, the first day of tabernacle. It's very close, isn't it, in proximity and occurrence. And so this is why we need to understand this and study this during this festival. So just amazing here. How the prophecy is just blows my mind, man. Then the survivors from all the nations that have attacked Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship Yahuwah and to celebrate the festival of tabernacles, Sukkoth. And if they don't go up to Jerusalem to worship Yahuwah in the millennium reign each year, they'll have no rain on their land. So that tells you that there's still going to be leaders. There's still going to be people. There's still going to be rain. There's still going to be flesh and blood. There's going to be a restored earth, a renewed earth, not a new one, but a restored, renewed during the millennium reign. But the difference is Yahuwah will be tabernacling with his people again. Wow, powerful stuff, man. Psalms 27 presents a pretty clear connection between Sukkoth and Yahuwah's protection, Yahuwah's protective covering, if you will, his tent, protection over his people, over Yisrael, and those who trust in him and call on his name. Let's look at it. Go to Psalms 27. Psalms 27. That's a really cool Psalms. 5. For in the yam of evil he hides me in his booth. See that? So here we're seeing that it's a clear connection between Sukkoth and Yahuwah's protective covering of his people, of Israel here. For in the day of trouble or the day of evil, he hides me or he conceals me in his booth, in his tabernacle, in his Sukkoth. In the covering of his tent, he hides me. Wow. So in the secret place of his tent, he will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock. In the covering of his tent, he hides me. On a rock, he raises me up. And now my head is lifted up above my enemies all around me. And I offer in his tent with shouts of joy. I sing, yes, I sing praises to Yahuwah. See that? And so in the tent then is being metaphorically representing Yahuwah's protective covering of his people. We're supposed to be in there offering up praises to Yahuwah, singing, shouting for joy, and celebrating in our security, being secure and joyous in this place of trust. It's all about trusting Yahuwah. Yahuwah presents a clear connection between the festival of Sukkoth and his protective covering of his people who trust in him. Who trust in him. So the word translated here as tabernacle is Sukkoth. Sukkoth. When evil or trouble threatens Yahuwah's people, Scripture says he will hide them in his Sukkoth, inaccessible from the enemy, on the rock of his presence, on the rock of his presence, on his name. Now that, my friends, is a promise we can trust in during these last days that we find ourselves in. Absolutely. We are the last generation. Let me see. Oh boy. I'm gonna have to share screen again. Here we go. My most favorite thing in the world to do. Let me share screen with you. I'm sure glad y'all like to share screen as much as I do. It makes it easier. So here you go. What's this man praying about, do you think? Why is he holding the lulav so closely to his neck? These are his people. These are his family, his relatives, his friends, his co-workers, his people, Yahuwah's people that he loves. Look at him. He's praying for you. Which one are you? Are you the willow? Are you the palm? Are you the myrtle branch? Which one? All you got to do is figure out what you do. Pretty simple, really. Look at how he loves them. Do you study Torah but do not obey Torah? Do you obey Torah but do not study Torah? Do you not study Torah nor obey Torah? Which one are you? This man's praying for you regardless. He loves you. You want to badmouth him because he's wearing that little beanie? He looks funny, kind of peculiar acting dude. Is that what you want to do? Or do you want to love him back? All right, so the Battle of Armageddon, Revelations 20, becomes very apparent, doesn't it? So the Battle of Armageddon, Revelations 20, 7 through 8 says this. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Shaitan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the Eretz, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. Okay, so here, see, this is why I think most people believe that Gog is a territory, a nation, or a coalition, along with Magog, because it mentions Gog and Magog here. Okay, but do you not realize that the Antichrist, the anti-Messiah, is Satan incarnated? So Satan is representing Gog here after he gets released, and he gathers the nations from Magog, the northern nations again, to gather them for battle. He led them prior to the millennium reign as the Antichrist. But after the millennium reign, when he gets released, it says, and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth. Gog and Magog to gather them for battle. And so Gog will gather Magog, the northern nations. Now in Hebrew, this doesn't really literally have to be a group of nations or a coalition of nations. This can just mean the evil forces from the north. And so we can understand it a little bit better then, can't we? Because the north is always the direction of evil or wickedness in Hebrew. So Gog and Magog would be Satan gathering the evil armies of the north. So Gog and Magog are also mentioned in the Nazarene writings, what they call the Brit Chadasha, or the New Testament, in connection with Armageddon and the final battle between the forces of good and evil. It seems to be, doesn't it? The final battle, the grand finale of war, the war of all wars, the war to end all wars. Where have we heard that before? The final battle between the forces of good and evil. It's mentioned one time in the Nazarene writings. This war with Gog and Magog that we're reading about here in Revelations 20 is not the same war described in Ezekiel 38 that we're just studying. But this will be this war. This here is describing the Satan's last ditch effort, okay, to try to take out Yahusha, because he knows he's fixing to get destroyed. So this ain't the same battle of Gog and Magog, even though it says Gog and Magog like it did in Ezekiel 38. It's not the same battle. And that's where people get mixed up. We have to understand that. And so this is after Satan gets released, okay, and then he goes out and he gathers together a large army to go against Yahusha. Okay? And he wants it to be a final battle because he's been brewing within his wickedness and his hatred and his filth for 1,000 years during the reign of Yahushua Mashiach. And can you imagine the things that he's been thinking of doing as soon as he's released? But this war never takes place. It appears to, like it's going to start. It's definitely it's assembled. The armies are assembled for sure. But that says here that in 29 it says, first says Gog and Magog to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sea, sand of the sea. So there's going to be a lot of people siding with Satan and marching against Jerusalem again. It's almost like a repeat, a sequel, if you will. And they came up over the breadth of the Eretz and surrounded the camp of the Kadeshim and the beloved city, which is Jerusalem. And fire came down from Yahuwah out of the heaven and consumed them. You see that? So they were consumed. There wasn't a shot fired. They marched there, they got there, and then Yahuwah consumed them. So the battle was never fought. And a lot of people say, well, this is the final end time battle that happens after 1,000-year reign, after the millennium reign, but there's really no battle here. Okay, there's an assembly of evil versus good, but no battle, because it says right here, a fire came down from Yahuwah out of the heaven and consumed them. And the devil who led them astray, speaking of the army that he assembled when he was released, was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur where the beast and the false prophet are. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. So, and then I saw a great white throne. So here comes the great white throne judgment and the second resurrection right after that. So there's no second war, and there's no second Armageddon here. Okay. Yahuwah sends fire down and consumes them, and then takes the devil and throws him into the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet are. Okay? So the last battle that mankind will ever fight is Armageddon, the battle that happened and climaxed with a nuclear detonation prior to, just before the millennium reign, not after. Okay? So scripture says that the son of Daud, speaking of Yahusha, will come again. And this time, when he comes, he's not going to be a meek, silent lamb being led to the slaughter. This time, he's going to be our conquering Messiah. He's going to defeat the evil forces that invade Israel. And he's going to defeat them forever. He's not going to allow them to attack Israel again. Satan gets one shot at it, and he loses. He's not getting a second chance. He's only getting let loose so that scripture can be fulfilled. And all who have believed in the deliverer and redeemer, Yahushua HaMashiach, will inherit eternal life. The bride will inherit eternity in the new city, the new Jerusalem, and will be the body of Yahuwah. During the millennium reign, you're going to see a revived Garden of Eden, a restored earth, complete with trees, pure living water, clean water, restored animals. Everybody will, including animals, will be vegetarians. Nobody's going to be eating meat anymore. So Armageddon's only mentioned one time in the Brit Chadasha, or the Netzarim writings, and it's in chapter 16. So go to there, the book of chapter 16 of Revelations, 16, 14. And I think so it'll be 16, 14, and 16. Yeah, through 16. So Revelation 16, 14 through 16. For they are ruachs of demons. Well, we're back up to 13. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, 3 unclean phantoms as frogs. For they are ruachs of demons, doing signs which go out to the sovereigns of the entire world, to gather them to the battle of that great Yom of Yahuwah the Almighty. See, I am coming as a thief. Blessed is he who is staying awake and guarding his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And they gathered them together to the place called in Hebrew Armageddon. So there it is. That's the only place you're going to see Armageddon mentioned. So this word here, Armageddon, or Armageddon, is Armageddon is derived from that word, Armageddon. And this in Hebrew means mountain of Megiddo. So Har Megiddo means mountain of Megiddo. But it's only mentioned this one time here in the Nazarene writings, but it's mentioned many times in the Tanakh, okay, what they call the Old Testament. And so many times in the Tanakh, one time in the Nazarene writings. So Megiddo comes from the root Hebrew word gadad, and means to penetrate, muster troops together, and or invade. So penetrate, muster troops together, invade. In this end time invasion, we once again see Israel's enemies mounting a war against Jerusalem. This time, however, we see the spiritual forces behind the rebellion against Yahushua. In Revelations 9:11, it says, they had a king over them called the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abandon and in Greek Apollyon. So both of these words, abandon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek, both mean destroyer. Destroyer. So at this time, Yahuwah pours out on the destroyer and all rebels the full extent of his judgment, including Satan being destroyed in the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet are. So this is really the end of evil, basically. The end of the millennium reign, and Satan gets let loose. He collects up all the remaining evil and wicked people that have expanded, through the millennium reign. All those that decided they didn't like Yahushua ruling over them will be destroyed, along with the devil, the beast, the Antichrist, and the incarnated Satan, and Satan's body, and the false prophet who has a demon. Revelations 29 through 10 says they marched across, let me see, 29 and 10, and they came up over the breadth of the Arets and surrounded the camp of the set apart ones, the Kadeshim, and the beloved city. The city, who's the beloved city? Who loves that city? It's Yahuwah. And so it's the city that he loves, his beloved city. And he wept over that city. And we're commanded to pray for his beloved city, Jerusalem. And we should, especially during this Feast of Tabernacle. But then it says, fire came down from Yahuwah out of the heaven and devoured them, consumed them, destroyed them. And the devil, Hashatan, the old serpent who deceived them, was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown in prior to the millennium reign. And they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. This doesn't mean that people will be, but perhaps these ones will. I mean, maybe. I mean, they are made immortal. They are demons, devil. They're angels. What they are, fallen angels. All besides the beast, which is Satan, robed in flesh. So maybe his fleshly body will be destroyed, but maybe he will too. Maybe he will destroy these immortal beings in the lake of fire. It is a place of non-existence, utter destruction. It's the outer darkness. That's what the demons call it, the outer darkness. And the Hebrew as well called it the outer darkness because it was outside of Yahuwah, which will be true darkness. There would be no light there, and that would be true darkness. Nighttime, Leah, is not true darkness because it's just the lesser light ruling over it. Even when the moon is a black disk hanging in the sky and there's no light shining on the face of the moon, the stars still give us light by themselves. And so it's still not total darkness because of the stars. So there's no such thing as total darkness except for outside of Yahuwah. And then that's where the outer darkness is, because it means non-existence, utter destruction. There's nothing there. It doesn't even exist because there's nothing outside of Yahuwah, nothing whatsoever, because Yahuwah made everything, created everything with inside of himself. He's the perimeter of life. He's the perimeter of existence. Nothing exists outside of Yahuwah. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nil. So perhaps they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Could be speaking of the devil and the demons who are immortal beings. Maybe they'll be thrown outside of Yahuwah somehow. But then again, maybe they'll just be utterly destroyed and non-existent. Because Scripture says that the old things will not even be remembered. They won't even come to heart. They'll be wiped out of your memory. Totally. Totally gone. So, you will deliver his people once again with an outstretched arm. He will shield the nuclear blast in Jerusalem. So as we read how Yahuwah will hurl his fury against Gog with pestilence and with blood and floods and giant hailstones, with hail, stones, fire, sulfur, brimstones, earthquakes. It's easy to see that Yahuwah is furious. His wrath. He has full wrath coming upon those who came down against Israel. It's obvious to see Ezekiel 38:22. And I shall judge him with pestilence and blood and rain, down flooding rain and hailstones, fire and sulfur on him and his bands or armies, and on the many people who are with him. So there it goes. There it is. So Yahuwah, obviously, he's coming with his full wrath, his full arsenal. He's Yahuwah Shabbaoth here. And Yahuwah's full fury upon those who come against the land of Israel. And a great shaking in the land, a great earthquake. So there are several parallels between Yahuwah's deliverance of Israel from Mitzrayim in Exodus and his future deliverance of Israel from Gog and Magog in the end times, the latter Yamim. In both, we can see that Yahuwah saves and rescues Israel with a strong hand and with an outreached arm. This Hebraic phrase, with a strong hand and an outreached arm, has special meaning in Israeli tradition. It represents Yahuwah using his power on behalf of his chosen people. The arm of Yahuwah also represents his deliverance, his redemption qualities. The Lamb of Yahuwah, his salvation, which in Hebrew language is Yahusha. So the arm of Yahuwah representing his deliverance in Hebrew is Yahusha. Look at Jeremiah 32. Yahusha is the arm of Yahuwah, the right arm, actually. Look at Jeremiah 32:21. And you have brought your people, Yisrael, out of the land of Mitzrayim with signs and wonders, with a strong hand and an outreached arm, and with great fearsome deeds. Look at Deuteronomy 4. Actually, Deuteronomy 26:8. Deuteronomy 26:8. And Yahuwah brought us out of Mitzrayim with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm, with great fear and with signs and wonders. And he brought us to this place and has given us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Look at Deuteronomy 4. Deuteronomy 4. 34. 4:34. Deuteronomy. Or has Elohim tried to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of a nation by trials and by signs and by wonders and by battle and by a strong hand and an outstretched arm and by great fearsome deeds, according to all that Yahuwah your Elohim did for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes? Look at Exodus 6:6. Exodus 6:6. Say therefore to the children of Yisrael, I am Yahuwah, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with the great judgments, and shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrites. So, interesting, isn't it? Is this not prophecy? Hidden secret prophecy? That his right arm will deliver for him his people? His right arm is Yahusha, the Word, the messenger of Yahuwah, the firstborn of all creation. So, as Russia continues its influence in this region, possibly being Magog here, and as the neighboring nations plot to annihilate Israel along with Russia, there was certainly evidence that Ezekiel 38 could be just over the horizon. Yet this Sukkoth teaching here reveals that Yahuwah's divine sheltering presence over Israel has not ended, but will continue past the end of the age of man's rule. So Yahuwah is obviously not finished with his people in Israel, the land that he chose, the city that he loves, his beloved city. This is plainly evident when we consider how scriptural prophecy concerning Israel is being fulfilled right in front of our eyes during this end of the end times that we find ourselves in. It's pretty clear. It's becoming even more obvious as the days roll on. The Netzarim writings, the Brit Chadasha, also tells us that Yahuwah's plan to reach out to the nations through Israel did not end with the death and the resurrection of Yahushua Mashiach, but continues to this day and will continue even in the millennium reign. Romans 11:15 says, for if their casting Yahusha aside means reconciliation for the world, what will their accepting him mean? It will be life from the dead. Be life from the dead. The book of Romans promises that when Yahuwah's people come to know their Messiah, come to accept Yahusha as their Messiah, it will be like life from the dead for them and the world. But before this can happen, however, they must first hear the Basora of Yahusha in their ears. Romans 10:14 says, how can they call on him unless they believe in him? How can they believe in him unless they hear about him? How can they hear about him unless someone proclaims it to them? Very powerful verse. Jeremiah 31:10 says, hear the word of Yahuwah, you nations. Proclaim it in distant coastlands. He who scattered Israel will gather him and will watch over his flock like a shepherd. Shabbat Shalom and happy Sukkoth to everyone. So I think that's where I'm going to leave this. I hope all of you got as much out of this as I did. This was a great study. And as the days inch more forward toward the return of Yahusha, we can see what we're going to be up against. And I really believe that we're all, his people are being refined right now. I mean, refined, purified, cleaned up, like gold is clean. Gold is refined. And when these last Yamim do arrive and the Antichrist comes on the scene, I think we'll be ready. And I think Yahuwah will endow us with power from above. And we'll be empowered to do the same signs, wonders, and miracles that the first Nazarene did. I really do. And I think for the 3.5 years of tribulation, we'll all walk in perfection like Yahuwah. And his command will be fulfilled. Be perfect, for your Father in the heaven is perfect. And I think we'll be a formidable army ourselves against the army of the wicked, evil, bad people. So, be in good cheer this festival of Tabernacles and sing and rejoice to Yahuwah in your booths. And spiritually, I mean, if you don't have a literal booth set up, no worries. Spiritually, you are in your temporary booth, aren't you? That's what this fleshly body is. It's your temporary booth. And Yahuwah is indwelling it with you. And so, have a relationship with him, correspond with him, sing to him, praise him, be joyful to him. And in your booth, your temporary booth. But remember, don't stay in that booth on the 8th day. Come out of it. On the 8th day, is a celebration of immortality, and it's a Shabbat as well. So no servile work is to be done. So, yeah, really cool study tonight. And thank all of you for being in the chat room, chatting up a storm, being nice to each other, showing each other love and kindness. I hope all of you enjoy the rest of the Feast of Tabernacles. And, be joyous. This is the most joyous festival of them all. And so don't miss out on a chance to laugh and be joyful and be happy and praising Yahuwah and talking with Yahuwah and having fun. It's all about having fun. It's not a burden or a drudge. It's about having fun. So go out there and have fun in your booths with Yahuwah, your loved ones, and pray for them. All right, folks. I appreciate y'all being here. And don't forget about tomorrow. We'll have the Nazarene Assembly tomorrow, Scripture Study Group, which we do every Shabbat. And this will be a special one because it's intermittently fallen in the Festival of Booths. And so it's really kind of a special one. And so don't miss it, And we do it on the same channel, Sparking You as Yah. It's at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 11 o'clock a.m. Central, 11 o'clock a.m. Texas time for all you cowboys and cowgirls out there, and 10 o'clock a.m. if you're in Phoenix, Arizona, and if you're out there on the West Coast breathing in that ocean air, it's at 9 o'clock a.m. So you have to get up, get your coffee, and get going so you don't miss a minute of it. Matter of fact, be there or be square. And remember to stay in love with Yahusha. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, everybody. I'll see y'all next week. Same time, same place. Or I'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Your choice. Peace, joy, and love to everyone.